Hello and welcome to the Power of Healing Your Energy show. This show is all about your unconditional love, your light, your intuition, your soul's purpose. And depression and anxiety are a side effect of not living your life intuitively, not trusting your gut, the lost connections with your higher self and others. So let's go higher and feel deeper. Hello, fellow empaths. I'm Christine with 24 Karat Healing. I'm your spiritual medium, intuitive energy coach, and old soul healer. And this is episode 41. And of course, each week we have a special guest and topic. And this week is no different. And I'm even trying to remember when I came across Orion. Probably 6 months ago online, just looking around. And when I seen that he is a brain healer and he is based out of Toronto, I'm like, okay, I got to know what brain healer, what is this about? He is an emphatic coach, body healer, and spiritual mentor. His interest in energetic therapies evolved from years of training and studying at his family's martial arts school. So he's had exposure to many masters in karate, qigong, native shamanism, Aikido, and many more, and it helped set a foundation for his energy awareness, his goal, and his clients to develop an awakened consciousness and a healthy body. And he is the founder of Energy Neuroplasticity, which is an energy therapy technique for healing concussions and other brain issues. Hello, everyone. Welcome. And please, we are live on Facebook and YouTube. Please like us, follow us, subscribe to us, and share this out because you're going to want to know all about Orion. And here he is. Hello.
Hi.
And welcome.
Thank you.
So I'm just trying to remember how we came in. I think it was a YouTube video.
Maybe, or LinkedIn. I think I posted something on LinkedIn and you found me that way.
Yes.
It was a long time ago. I don't actually remember.
Yeah, and it just seems, especially in what we're in right now and everything that's going on, it just seems eons away, right? At least that's how it feels. And I don't know about you, but do you feel like time has sped up a little bit?
I think time slowed down. Personally for me, it slowed down
For
quite a
you?
bit.
Okay.
Which I'm actually enjoying because it's been pretty hectic until this COVID thing. So a little break, a little vacation in spring is fantastic. So I enjoyed my birthday and had a good time in the last little while with friends and online and family, and just
Nice.
enjoying my time off a little bit. And I know it's gonna be fast and furious on the other end of this, so I'm
Yes,
gonna enjoy that.
absolutely. Well, happy belated birthday.
Thank you.
So just looking, at I think I came across you're a CanPrev ambassador. I just kind of came across that. And I was, the bio that you sent me was a little bit different from, what was on there. And I was really intrigued about how you took your 26 years of martial arts training, you transitioned into the energy medicine healing work after the birth of your daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And then you were asked why, and I love this. You said, that's because hurting people is easy, but healing them takes a lot more knowledge.
Yeah, well, martial arts was a great foundation for a guy with a huge ego and lots to prove. And being the son of the founder of our school, I had to put in twice the effort, I think, of that everybody else. So that was my upbringing. But the wonderful thing was it wasn't just a martial arts school. We also had qigong, we had aikido masters, we had just every kind of energy master you can imagine, reiki masters coming through our door. I even learned Japanese tea ceremony at like 14 years old. It was really an eclectic group of experiences and people. So it really set up a foundation for me later in life to what I'd end up becoming, ironically, because I wasn't expecting myself to end up down that path. I was certain I was going to be an architect, and I had done all these renderings and trained with all these famous architects. I was going to be the architect, and then found kinesiology at Dalhousie University, and then went to York and studied that fully, and loved kinesiology because it was architecture of the body. And that really excited my scientific mind of discovery and experiences that I was looking for. So, and then I came back to it roundabout because I healed a concussion kind of by accident. It wasn't on purpose. It was, what I mean by it wasn't on purpose is, I was a personal trainer for a long time, and out of university because it was just an easy job to do in kinesiology, because it was sort of personal training was sort of like a muted down form of kinesiology. It was just sort
Mm.
of an easy way of taking that knowledge and becoming something useful. And I worked with this young kid who had a concussion. And I said, well, I just did body talk therapy. I just studied in body talk therapy. Let me just lay it down, put you on the table, muscle test, and let's figure out what's going on with you. I worked with him for about 10, 20 minutes and nothing was happening. The typical responses and the tapping and the breathing, nothing was happening with this kid. And I intuitively just put my hand above his head, about 4 inches above his head. I just sat there with it, and I heard this crackling in my head and a crackling in his head. I said, "Do you feel that?" He goes, "Yeah, I felt that. That was really strange." And he went home. He was really tired, slept. The next day, I found out his concussion was gone. So it was
Mm.
this unusual kind of, I was in the right place at the right time with this question mark and not knowing what I was doing, but felt it was the right thing to do. And that's when the neuroplasticity came about. It was an accident about, I don't know, 16 years ago. And over time, another person came in with a concussion. I'm like, well, let me try this thing. And then eventually I turned in this whole therapy, but I wasn't going in with that. I just went in with curiosity, and I wonder what would happen if, and I wonder what happened when. And it was a mixing of a bunch of different things.
Yeah, and beautiful how you found your gifts by helping others and being curious and trusting the process. I mean, that's really important when it comes to healing, at a 360-degree level. So
Hmm.
um, now what is body talk? I mean, there's lots
Body
of,
talk.
go ahead.
It's actually really big in Edmonton, over
Mm-hmm.
there. John Veltheim was the inventor of that, and he's kind of a guy like me. Yeah, he did. In his case, he was a Reiki master, a martial arts master, and he was osteopath, and he did a bunch of different. I think he also did was an acupuncturist as well, and he mixed these together to be. He created um, I don't know if you know what kinesiology is, but the muscle testing is called, applied kinesiology, and he created an applied kinesiology flow chart for taking all these different procedures and letting the body choose what it wants. And so it's based
Mm.
on yes and no, and it's great. It has its great advantages. It healed my brain from the things I was going through, but it has its disadvantages because you got a muscle test and yes and no and yes and no and yes and no and yes. For me, it was very slow. And a lot of people who become a body talk therapist become a medical intuitive because we're just trying to speed up the process. We're like, we
Mm.
put my hands on the head. I'm like, what's going on? And we pop, there it is. Your pineal gland activates. You have this inference. You then break it down, try it out. So I think it was just the fact it was so slow that I found the medical intuitive was just faster. I just put my hand on the head. And, oh, that's what it is. And then I just chest, yes, absolutely, and we go. So it was body talk itself is a great intro therapy for people who are doing Reiki or things that want to get involved in the medical field from a layman's point of view. It's fantastic. It has its disadvantages because it's muscle testing and slow, and you got to memorize a flow chart. And so I'm going to say that the truth, which is the great part, it's fantastic, and the downside is it's really slow. So
Mm.
I like it. I use it for treatments when it comes up as something I need to do, but I don't start with body talk. I'll say, hey, let's do a body talk session, but I'll be working on a brain or I'll be working on some emotions, and there's a specific correction for releasing old pain, like the emotions with an injury. So, give an example. I work with a lot of people who ride horses, equestrians.
Mm-hmm.
This woman was kicked in the face by a horse, and I'll just tell you the story. There's a loud car that screeched to a halt. The horse in front of her got scared, kicked her in the head, and every time she hears a car brake or a squeal, she shakes. She would freak out and have this sort of panic attack that she's just getting hurt, which is really common with injuries, car accidents or whatever. So
Mm.
it was the emotional trigger I had to go about, and so doing a body talk release was fantastic for very certain things. And that one, it gets into the amygdala, it repatterns the amygdala in the brain to release the emotion that are trapped in within experience. And with injuries, it's fantastic. So again, certain pieces I really, really love in body talk, and they do come up a lot with the brain healing.
Mm-hmm. It kind of reminds it. Would that not be PTSD or a form of?
Sometimes, well,
Sometimes, okay.
so when we say PD, we have these great terms:
Mm.
post-traumatic stress disorder. We have, people that are shocked, people that have a bipolar. Bipolar is another great example of someone who has a broken heart and doesn't deal with it, in denial, and eventually eclipse them. I mean, I get that a lot, where they say, well, I'm this and this and this. I'm like, okay, well, let's put my hand on your heart and see what's actually there. So
Mm.
I put my hand on your heart, like, what are you carrying in there? And when we come to the core issue, and that it hasn't been solved or dealt with or forgiven or let go, that's their issue. And we have all these great terms for it. Sometimes it's just a broken heart. Sometimes it's just not forgiving, not letting go.
Mm-hmm.
Things that, and this, you'll probably know this as Canadians, is that people carry a lot of tension. People carry a lot of fear and tension. And right now, with what we're going through, it's even more so.
Yes.
People are naturally very fearful. People are even more fearful. Now they can't even go out of their house without fear and panic. But that trapped feeling prevents you from actually connecting to the soul, which is outside there. It's not so much inside as people think. The soul sits around the body. And when you're in
Yes.
love, when you're in when you're in connection, when you're in that sense of flow, and you're reaching out from yourself, and you reach out to where the soul begins, if we were to give it a space, which is about a foot away, that's when we
Mm-hmm.
hit that joy. And then we feel like we have this huge field, and then we're this massive being that can do all these things and have all these understandings. But if we carry this trappedness, we don't get to feel that flow. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of healing is getting people to resolve their issues so they can open up their hearts, open up themselves to reach out beyond to their soul energy. And then they're in that sense of flow with themselves. They're truly themselves. A
Absolutely.
lot of healing is that.
Yes, everything you're saying, I resonate with. I understand. Angie is joining us. She's saying aloha, and she is out in Hawaii. Hi,
Wow.
Angie. Please share, tag some friends. And I had asked the question if anyone here had a concussion. I know I have. Liz is saying that she has as well. So when we talk about concussions, you're basically saying you can heal the brain, you can heal the concussion. What does that look like? Where does that start?
Well, like I said before, discovering it was by accident. But
Mm-hmm.
what it is, it's using the pineal gland in a very different way. Our pineal gland, and I'll review this for people who are not aware of
Sure.
this. Pineal gland is in the very center of the brain. It looks like a pine cone. It's connected to the brain stem. It gets this raw energy off of the Kundalini energy off the spine. It's a very powerful organ, and it's what we call the mind's eye. If you look inside anatomically, it's got rods and cones, which are the same as that are in your eyes. And so when we imagine, when we dream, we're using our pineal gland passively. I'm using it actively. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm sending, I put a person in a very state of relaxation, a deep state of that, very similar to when someone's being hypnotized. I guess it's a very similar state. And they wake up their pineal gland, and I expand their awareness from the pineal gland to the area of injury. So if someone has the back of the head, the most common places are the back of the head, or the front of the head, or the top of the head. Those are the three main concussion areas. So we'll just say the top of the head.
Okay.
I get them to waken up that pineal gland in a visualized, felt way. And then I reach out further and further and further and further and further. And if you're a Reiki master, someone who's very aware of energy, you get to a point where the soul begins, the pineal gland and the soul connect, and that connection through the damaged tissue causes this reboot of the brain.
Mm,
So that's what I've
absolutely.
learned. So the brain, the pineal gland has the ability to receive and send information, but it also has the blueprint for how the brain's meant to be. And when you reach your awareness through, and it's a vectored consciousness, you reach through the injury site, that brain part has to change. You're putting a high energy field into a brain that can't function as well. The lower functioning brain starts organizing itself to be able to flow with that.
Absolutely. Liz she has a question. She's asking, can a concussion affect memory shortly after injury and afterwards?
I'm not quite sure I understand what that means. Does it affect memory? Yes, it does. I
Mm,
think it affects more, well, it depends on where you hit.
mm,
If you're hitting your front right side, right here, so for me, I don't know if you can see that, that's short-term memory. A lot of
yeah.
it's in the right temple.
Okay.
So when I'm working with people, with seniors with early early onset of Alzheimer's,
Mm,
that's right here, or dementia, it's in the
yeah.
right side of the head.
Okay.
When it comes to the different hits, have to do with different memories. When you're hitting the back of the head, sort of middle back, where the limbic area, those are emotional memories. We hit the very back of the head, that's your physical energy of your body. So like your ability to physically exercise and function. Whereas we're
Mm,
going to the front, this would be thought, and ideas and planning and organization. That's all in the front of the head. So
Mhm.
memories are haphazard in the brain. They're in the right side, and they're in the emotional center, and sometimes in the back in the occipital lobe. But what we've learned about memory is it's also in the body. This is kind of an interesting thing that people have had double amputations. For instance, they lose both arms or both legs, have huge gaps of memory where long-term memory is being stored within the physical body. And that's kind of a new concept. We think of memory always stored in the brain, but long-term is stored chemically through the body.
Mm.
And it's placed in our arms and legs and various organs. And when we're thinking about something, we just can't think of it. It's like, and then suddenly, boom, it pops in our head. We found it in the body somewhere. It's not in the head. It's further down. And when we relax, we can get to that information. So it
Mm.
does affect memory, but usually it affects emotional memory with concussions. So
Okay.
a very common thing is a woman who says, I got this concussion. Suddenly I want to divorce my husband because she doesn't remember any of the good feelings. She hit the part of her head that's all the emotional memory, and she just, there's this man, I don't really like him. When I did a concussion healing, she suddenly all this love and memory comes back because the emotions are tied to that.
Mm.
So certain memories are absolutely tied to concussions, and certain things like long-term memories aren't. So short-term memory, sure. Long-term memory,
Yes.
probably not. But it's so. If you've had a concussion, you understand this. The people that don't understand concussions, now I haven't had one. I had my own brain trauma, nothing to do with concussions. But the feeling is it's like you're underwater.
Mm.
Everything is slow. You get overwhelmed easily. You feel like you're drowning a little bit. There's this feeling of everything going slow and nothing functioning at its peak performance.
Mm.
And people feel I do 3 treatments for concussions generally.
Okay.
And the first feeling is that your head's above water, but your body's not. Like you're clear and you're functioning, but your body's physically slow. And the second one feels like you're out of the water to the hips, and then the last one, you feel like you're out of the water. Generally, it's about 3 sessions of this neuroplasticity to wake up all the brain parts and focus energy down the spine, because the spine has a lot to do with the brain, as I've
Mm.
learned.
Yeah, definitely. I'm learning lots here. Angie just saying she had 2 concussions. One was about 8, and then that was 55 years ago, and the other one was close to 40, so in her early 20s. So it looks, yeah.
Now, really interesting is I had someone for a very similar thing come in. And the first concussion, now the concussion that this person had, she was hurt. There's a neighbor kid who almost killed her. He took a rock and started smack her on
Mm.
the head with it.
My
She had
goodness.
no recollection of that concussion. And when she did her second concussion, we did the treatment, and we found out that all of her, now this is a person who also had schizophrenia and a bunch of other mental disorders. It was all related to the trauma of that first concussion. She was in a state of fight or flight. And so by the time she hit her 20s, she spent her entire life in fight or flight. And she felt like she was going crazy. And it was all tied into that emotional not forgiving, not releasing, not getting into the emotion of that first injury. And when she forgave that boy and whatever, we did the second treatment to her more recent concussion, and all the schizophrenia was gone because it was tied to the fight or flight from the first injury that she had forgotten about. So when it comes to multiple concussions on different times of life, it's really interesting because sometimes people live kind of a skewed life because the brain hasn't been able to process emotions or experiences, or sometimes can't let go. Sometimes it doesn't feel normal. So sometimes an old injury and a new injury, um, it's almost like it's bad enough that when you clear that out, you can actually get your whole life back in some cases, because concussions are just damage. And if they're not, now sometimes again, some kids heal very quickly. They have a concussion, they just snap out of it. I have a lot of hockey players. All the hockey players I've worked with have multiple concussions, but the first
Mm.
one's around 8 or 10 when they're a young like pee-wee player, and then eventually, when they're in the AAA, and then when they hit the NHL, they've had 6 concussions by the time they get there. But there's a emotional lagging, emotional non-development that happens with concussions, which is really interesting.
Wow. And Angie's just asking if she could still have effects from the concussions long ago.
You can have it for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Absolutely.
Now, if people, I live in Toronto, our work, if people are unable to work here in Toronto, I highly recommend 2 things as well. One is Reiki's fantastic. If you work with a Reiki master, or cranial sacral, there can be improvement. I'm not saying there isn't. There's definitely improvement. They also, listening to jazz with the lights off, quiet jazz. When someone has a concussion, the first thing I say, other than to go to the doctor and go for all the testing, is to sit quietly in a dark room and listen to old '60s jazz, because jazz has different kinds of musics going different paces, and it causes both right and left brain to work together. So it
Okay.
causes the corpus callosum to really connect the brain parts together, and jazz is fantastic. Now, I'm not a big fan of it, but it does a great job for people with concussions, and people claim they've had great success by listening to soft jazz.
Hmm.
So,
Interesting.
but
Interesting.
specifically '60s and '70s jazz, not the new wave jazz, not the older Dizzy Gillespie, Miles Davis,
Yeah,
Coltrane,
the
the
real
great,
the tones. It's the tones.
right.
And what about healing frequencies? What's your thought on those?
I tried the binaural beats when that came out on YouTube, and there was a lot of that, and I listened to it.
Mhm.
I got some amazing dreams. I never had any great success with it. It didn't harm me,
Mm,
um, but I didn't necessarily feel any improvements with anything specific.
okay.
Um, that was my experience, but I can't say that for anyone else. Everyone's got their unique experiences.
Yes. Yeah, she's saying it's very interesting. I'm totally, I could learn about this all day for weeks at a time, just soak it up. But so we talked about concussions. Now, what about brain trauma? What's the difference?
Well, concussions are brain trauma, but there's a lot of
Yes.
brain trauma. One example is I had a guy that came to me after he had brain surgery. That's brain trauma. He
Mm,
had
okay.
I think it was an embolism, or there was some artery that had a problem in his brain, and they had surgery and they rearranged things in his brain. So he came through with a brain that was shifted from
Mm,
the injury. The swelling caused the brain to shift itself over, and my
okay.
job was to shift it back.
Mm,
So brain trauma, yes. I specifically work with concussions because I want you to think concussions are sort of like um, a pillow, and as
hmm.
all the parts are there, but they're squeezed down. Okay,
Okay.
so all the parts are there because every part is there. I can unsqueeze those parts, but with some of the brain trauma where the parts being pulled out, you can't create new tissue. You can just reorient the tissue to do work its best it can, but you can't actually create new brain tissue. You can't people with strokes. You can't take damaged tissue and make it come alive again. It is what it is.
Yes.
But concussions I love because all the parts are there. It just needs to be sort of pulled,
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
unfolded to some extent.
Unfolded. And I
And
love the work that you do, by the way, but
thank you.
and like I said, I work with energy as well, and I just see it as gaps. When they say blocks, it's like, for me, I find that a bit of a negative connotation, meaning it'll never happen. It's almost like it appeals to the ego in a way.
Well, the
Um,
blocks in the body usually have a lot of blocks in the emotion. I mean,
mhm,
the thing with emotional healing I do with people, the empathic work, I put either my hands on their head,
mhm.
or especially with men, because you can do that, I put my hand right on their heart,
Okay.
and we go there. Um, I
Mm,
skip a lot of process and therapy. We go right in what is actually there. What are you actually feeling? What do you believe to be true? What are you acting on to make it true? You know, we do with beliefs and definitions, and we go into experiences, and we go directly into the heart, because I believe that the mind doesn't create stuff. It's only reflecting what's imbalanced. So when you have
yes.
these circular thoughts, it's um, I'm unlovable, or I'm unworthy, or I get these a lot, because this thing happened to me when I was beat up when I was 10 years old and picked on. I feel picked on the rest of my life, and everyone's picking on me, and it overwhelms people, that one
Mhm.
initial experience, or those multiple experiences. And what I find is, by put my hand right on their heart, or put my hands on their head in their limbic area, and they go into their heart, we actually connect to the feeling itself. We go back to the experience, and we change the relationship there. And then once that releases, after about 6 or 7 days, they have their ups and downs, the emotional healing starts. And then when I talk to them again, that thing is not an issue anymore. It doesn't stay. If you actually directly go to the issue, it has no reason to stay in there. It's only
Ah,
if you go into, trying to prevent it by saying, "Well, I'm healed now," but you don't feel healed, you'll never be healed. Or if you try to deny it, it's always going to come
mhm.
back and bite you. So it's a matter of going into what the core thing is, and actually dealing with that core issue causes shift and change, and that's always good, because that's bringing you
Yes,
back to your full self.
to who you truly are, your soul's
Right.
purpose.
Which
That's
is
why.
which is a lot of different things. Who
Mm,
we are is a lot of different things,
of
but it's
course.
it's the okay with the fact that we're a manyness, we're not a singular. But we're
Yes.
not just an individual. We're many parts. If you were to actually list all your parts, you have a body, a mind, you have a soul, or you believe. We have a sense of purpose. We have a sense of family. We have a culture. We have a gender. We have so many things that we identify with who we are. And it's okay that you're all those things, all those parts together that make who you are.
Mm,
And it's not really great for the brain because the brain wants something simple, but it's not a simple answer of what we are. We're actually way more interesting than our minds can comprehend. But being
absolutely.
okay with that is really the key, you know?
Yes. Yes, exactly. Well, she's asking Angie what the long-lasting effects of concussions are if they're not treated.
Wow, that's pretty general.
Mm.
Have her ask something more specific because I could answer any particular way and it wouldn't be useful to her. I,
That's
if you ask
true.
very specific questions, I think I can get to the gold of what you're looking for, and
Hmm.
maybe ask that differently, Angie.
Yeah, definitely. I'm just going to jump to, um, yeah, I get this question quite a bit, or at least with my clients. How do I open my third eye? How do I activate it? How do I?
Well,
Um,
the third eye. If we go back to the ancient Sanskrit idea of the third eye,
mhm,
first off, meditation, being silent, being still.
mhm.
That's the core. Now, being silent, being still for the average person is really difficult because our mind, my groceries, my kids, my business, my debts, my credit card, there's all these ideas. Oh, my show's starting, or I forgot this thing, or got to, all the monkey mind, as we call it, is
Yes.
really hard for people to organize. So one thing I've done with people is create visualizations, which is create a light, create a flow, feel this from here to there. Feel the energy from your spine rise up to your third eye. Feel that sense of flow. So if we were talking about cerebral spinal fluid, we're talking about the um, cerebral spinal fluid flowing up the spine, or this energy flowing, or light flowing up the spine, going to third eye, and just see it open, feel it open, and expand the consciousness there. That's all you need to do to create that connection to that point and start that up, is to feel it and explore it, but explore it
Yes.
as an idea, which it's not, people think it's in the front, it's actually kind of between the ears here.
Hmm.
That sits directly in the center of your brain. And when you feel that expansion outwards in every direction, you're going to have that awareness, but you have to sort of be okay with it. People who've done trance channeling, and they feel these words are coming out of them. It's really strange. Who's this voice coming out of me? It takes a while to get comfortable with that. With pineal gland activation, you just visualize and feel it and feel it and feel it until you can control some level of turning it on and turning it off. And I think that's really the key.
Hmm. Absolutely.
You just start
Uh,
doing it,
yeah,
and then it starts happening.
but here's the thing, and I hear it a lot, but I don't want to meditate, or I don't want to, I don't have time for that, or
Okay,
I don't know
but
how,
I'll
yeah.
tell you, everyone's got their thing. Some people like a sit in the bath with soft music and a glass of wine. I'm not saying that's bad. That's people's relaxation time. That's the time where they can really connect to themselves. Some people like to lay in a chair. Some people take naps. Whatever your permission slip, that's fine. The trick is that where do you go in that moment? And all I
Hmm.
say is start resonating with these things. So resonate with your heart, resonate with your pineal gland, resonate
Yes.
with, or for people who want to be more athletic, who want to be more in touch with their body, the back of their head, there's a cerebellum, and the cerebellum is a brain. So imagine the brain, it's the little brain below the brain in the back, and that controls your connection to your physical body. So I get a lot of athletes that want to get to that level of competition or playing. Where do I go before I play? I always say, feel your hand on the back of your head. That's the cerebellum. I want you to be there, because that's in the moment. That's in the part that makes you react and feel out the game, feel out the moment, to be in that movement, exactly the right place at the right time. That's the back of your head. So athleticism is the back of the head. The genius of the body is in the back of the head. The genius of the mind and thought is in the front of the head,
Mm,
and the genius of emotion is in the side of the head.
yeah.
So I remember working with this young kid, and he was a teenager. He's like, well, how can I get girls to listen to me? This is a great one. How do I get girls to pay attention? Everything else being set aside. I said, well, who is it that you're interested in interacting with? Well, there's this girl, and she's full of emotion and excitement. And he said, I really like her. I said, I bet you she she connects to the side of her head, her limbic area, her emotional center. So, well, if you're talking to an emotional center, mirror emotional center, connect to the side of your head and expand your consciousness. And someone who's a feeler will connect with you because you're speaking the same language. A thinker, well, like
Yes.
a mind thinker, like doctors, lawyers who just spend all this time in abstract thought, they think here. They think in the
Yes.
front of that. So when you're talking to someone who's in the front of that, put yourself in the front of that. Don't go in the backyard and challenge them. Go in the front of that and mirror them and feel
Mirror. Yeah.
where they take you in that thought. Because if they're geniuses of thought in the frontal cortex, great, go on that adventure. Or if you're dealing with someone who's really working on the gym and getting really fit, and he's in the back of that, feel your back of the head and give yourself permission to explore your physicality of the strength of your physical body back there. So these are great explorations to do with people. When you have 10 different people in a room, have 10 different kinds of ways of connecting with them and mirror them and find out who they are.
Absolutely. And connect. That's what we're here for. Bridging and connections, collaborations. This time that we're in is perfect to do so. And Danielle is asking about the third eye. She's
Nope.
asking if it's
The answer is
dangerous.
absolutely not. It's not dangerous. There is, now I'll tell one thing. There is one thing, and I'm sure you've not gone through this as well, which is the duality. When people are getting an
Yes.
energy healing, there's this two realities that come to task. Now, I started the energy healing first before I did kinesiology in the Western medicine, which told us that we were just lumps of flesh and synapses, which is what my professors try to keep on instilling in me, which I didn't buy into. But it really had a dampening effect on my sense of wonder of the world. When people open up their third eye, they're going to feel that they are not just this physical body, not just this gender, this culture, their beliefs. They aren't these things. These are just the vehicle of your experience. But when you reach out to open your third eye and you realize you're more psychic and you realize your field is about 100 feet across, if you're to give it a size, your Merkaba or your soul, it's usually around 80 to 100 feet across. That's the size of your beingness. And that's a place to really explore, but you can't do that without your third eye or your heart open or some level of reaching beyond your physical body to that field. So waking up your third eye, it's only if you carry a lot of fear will it be a fearful event. So it's not dangerous, but I would recommend, take your time, learn about it, research it, meditate, practice. And we when we dream, we're using our third eye every single time we have dreams. We use it by accident. When you imagine stuff in your head, you're using your third eye. We're just using it kind of a passive way. With healers and empaths, we're turning that on. When I do brain healing, I just say, okay, go, and it just starts happening. I don't go into a zone. I don't do any breathing techniques. I don't bow down to anything. I just sit there and just say go, and it starts because that's my permission slip. When people want to get to their awakening, I highly recommend laying quietly down somewhere and reaching out from your body beyond your physical body to that field and really opening up that field. And as you feel and flow with that field, whether you open your third eye or your heart, it really makes no difference. You're in that field and you're flowing with that field. It'll naturally wake up your third eye. It'll naturally wake up your heart. All right. So those are our interdimensional portals, if you will, of how we reach out beyond our physical body.
Yes, and I love the dream part because it's that's your soul speaking to you through
Right.
your dreams, and
Right.
it's oh gosh, it's part of the ego as well. I know when I first started, I'm like, I gotta open my third eye, but everybody has their own way of doing it and getting there. There is no switch or easy button. It's an exploration
Sure.
in self. Angie's just asking about depression, negative self-image, I'm believing she's trying to say, or feeling. I'm on an emotional roller coaster with quick changes or feeling lack of control. Could these be from injury from that long ago?
Yes. The short, quick answer is yes, absolutely. But it's more than that. There is the injury, but if you feel very injured by it emotionally, it'll be a much harder thing than the actual physical injury itself. I'm gonna answer it in a roundabout way. When I was a kid and I had a test and I wasn't studied for it. I forgot I had a test. I'd have to go to school. I could make myself sick in about 5 minutes. I could have a fever, flu, stuffy nose, runny. Like I could make myself sick in no time just by saying, okay, body, I need you to get sick, and it would get sick. And if I can make myself that sick in that short amount of time, imagine if you had a belief system that you're hurt. If you have a belief system that you have a wound, and you haven't confronted that feeling as well on top of the injury, it's like it's two-pronged issue. One is the physical injury and one's the emotional injury. The emotional injury, if you can resolve that to some extent, the physical injury sometimes gets triggered into healing as well. Not always, but it's something to look at as well.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah. And I feel for you, Angie. I really do. It sounds like you're on your own journey, and yeah, it's just going to take time and finding the right guides and
But
healers.
one thing I'll say,
Mm-hmm.
when I work with people that are trained to become healers and medical intuitives, the first thing that they have to learn is forgive anything and everything that's ever happened to them. That everything that's happened to them, they look at. I like the analogy of gold mining. You have to move a lot of dirt out of the way to get to the gold of it. If you have every experience, if you take all the dirt, the obvious trauma and drama out of the way to the gold of, well, it made me pay attention more. It made me realize I'm more worthy than I thought. If you take the experience and really distill it down to what the positive thing, what the positive thing you got from it was, you got to move a lot of emotional dirt out of the way to find that one little piece. But that one little piece might be the answer of why that thing happened, or why that relationship went that way, or why that family structure was that way, or why this parent didn't love you enough. Those things are super important. If you just say, well, maybe I need to learn myself to love myself more.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I had to stop depending on other people outside of me to tell me my worth and find who my worth is on the inside. You see? So that's sometimes where you can take a negative and turn into a positive if you go deep enough into it, which is not always on the surface. You've got to usually have a therapist to work through that with you to find out what wonderful things happen because of that negative experience. And concussions are no different.
No.
I had
And
someone say to me, I had to bang my head a few times to finally get over this thing, and it had
oh,
nothing to do with the concussion. It was like they
wow.
had chosen to co-create that event so that they could just get over this thing, and that was their last hit to the head to get them going. To get them know they're wounded enough that they have to start healing themselves, and they healed everything. And had nothing to
Wow.
do with the concussion. The concussion was just their reason to come in the door.
What a beautiful epiphany. They got their own light bulb aha epiphany
Right.
moment. And that's part of it as well, is you need to find it yourself. We can guide you there,
Yeah.
but you really got to untap it. I wanted to ask about children, because I read that you help with learning disabilities, and I want you to touch base on, because I'm very intrigued with this. I know my niece is as well, but indigo and crystal children.
Sure. Well, I'm going to take a little bit to ADD, because crystal children, indigo children is it's a very broad-based subject. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to talk about specifically ADD, because I think that's something people can say, hey, I learned something, I'm going to try this out. So I'm
Okay.
going to give people a little bit of a heads up on that. So ADD is one of the learning disabilities people have. It's very common today. One idea behind it is a very slow moving body energetically and a very fast moving soul. And the disconnect between the two, where they have this impatience and this belief that it should just go a lot faster, but their body's physically vibrating so slowly and their soul is vibrating high, and there's a disconnect. That's
Mm-hmm.
one idea. And which is what you do is make sure your diet and your exercise and your body is really healthy so that they become imbalanced more. That's one idea. The second idea behind that is a lot of ADD kids, they don't use their left temple. They are all right brain. They're all creative right brain people, and they're
Mm-hmm.
all over the place. They have no organizational skills. They have no sequential order things. They feel like they're going crazy. That they're just, and they feel low self-esteem because they're not like everybody else. They can't get the good grades. They can't do math. They can't do organizational stuff. They can't pack their lunch in the morning. So ADD is in the left brain. So what I get them to do is wake up their pineal gland and shift out of their left brain about maybe 6 inches to a foot over their left temple. As they reach out to the left temple, they feel like it's a place they've never been before. They've never used that part of the brain. And that part of the brain for someone who's ADD feels kind of cold, kind of robotic. It feels very organized, there's no better word, it feels anal retentive, like obsessive compulsive, because that's what the left brain does. It takes takes all the data and organizes it in sequential events. So for ADD kids, I always say, put your hand in your left temple. Now go through that like a door, go through that into your left side of your left brain. And suddenly they find that spot where they're like, oh, there's my organization. Oh, there's that cold, calculating, organized thing that I need to do. So I just have to remind them to put your hand here, go enter, and you're like opening a door. And it's cool because that part of the brain is actually a cold spot, as you were saying earlier. And as they get into that area of the temple, it warms up to a point where it's not separate. It feels like it's a part of them. And it takes practice. But those people that suffer ADD, a lot of times, if you have them put their hand on their left temple and feel like they're reaching through a door and going outside about a foot through their left temple, that's the place for the brain where they need to go for ADD to go away. Generally, I'm giving a generalization, but I'd say 7 or 8 kids have that problem in the left temple.
And that makes sense.
They're all right brain.
Yeah.
They're creative. They're brilliant. I had this guy who can do a BMX bike and do a triple flip. I mean, they have abilities, but they can't wake up and go to school, or they can't wake up and pack their lunch. They can't just do simple tasks of, picking something out, putting it back, cleaning up after themselves, putting the dish in the dishwasher. Those things, they can't physically get there because their brain is so wired up to all those other things they can't actually connect to right here and now. And that left brain helps them organize to be in the moment and be sequential. So there's a little tidbit for the kids that are suffering from ADD and the parents might be listening to this.
Yeah, no, this is great. I'm going to share this out again and tag, some of that stuff and some people that I know that could really watch this again on the replay and learn something. I think that's amazing because we tend to always go to pills, right?
I'm not saying they're all bad.
No.
I have to say NAC and vitamin C is incredible. N-acetylcysteine is something, and I'm not a doctor, I'm not prescribing, but for an alternate to Ritalin, it really helps people through depressions and helps people. It's very, very, very mild. And also, I believe it cleans out the liver as well. It's a liver cleanse as well. So it has positives on the physicality, but also a lot of, it helps the brain with the glutathione, which is the natural feel good of the brain. So that's something interesting for people to Google and look into as something. And I had known someone who had gone through depression, and that was really useful. But I'm not prescribing anything. I'm not a doctor. No. But something to look into is NAC, N-acetylcysteine, and vitamin C mixed as a natural thing for the brain. And for people who are suffering from emotional trauma, it helps a lot too. It doesn't make you, it's not like it makes you high, it just makes you neutral. So if you're down, if you're going with people that are coming off cigarettes, for instance, it's fantastic. Where then the big craving and that big low spot, it keeps them more on this level as opposed to the up and down.
Instead of the crashing, the highs and lows.
Exactly. So I recommend that, something for people to look into. It's really dramatic, the effect it has on people through those really dark times. And it's not addictive and it's natural. So again, something to look into.
Yeah, it's always good to, if it's natural, look into it, right?
And that's where CamPrev came in. So Franco and Tanya Salaturo, the owners of CamPrev, are clients of mine for many, many years, and that's why I'm one of their ambassadors. Actually, I was like, Franco, you got to come up with this thing. It's like a vitamin C thing you can take, and like, oh no, I'll never make that. And 2 years later, he makes it. And then you got to make this protein is like this and this with natural green. No, I'll never do that. And a couple of years later, it comes out. So I've ironically dumped a little. I just like intuitively just know the next thing that he's got to look into sometimes, and it does help. So yeah, I'm a fan of that. They have an amazing company, amazing products.
Yeah, they do. I've tried quite a few of their products, so they're good products.
They're in the leading edge, and they come up with formulations before everyone else does, and their labels are gorgeous. They really understand the mentality of making a superior product with a superior look, and that was really lacking about 15 years ago before they came in the industry. Everything had these bland labels and bland things, and vitamin C and vitamin A and vitamin D. Every thing was individual, and they said, "Hey, screw this. Let's put all this and this and this together for this particular reason, or for Joint Pro." Or it's fantastic. So I have to say, they really are number one out there with trying new stuff out, new formulations. So
that's great.
Here's my little plug to CamPrev.
There you go.
As their ambassador, there we go.
Why not? Danielle is just laughing. I think probably the left, when you're talking about the left side there, she needs to do that practice. So I think she enjoyed that. You were sharing that information.
Yeah. The robot
Wonderful.
side
And
of us. Go into the
yeah.
robot side of us. It's there. If you ever hang around people that are very studious, left brain, organized, slightly like like a someone who is a back office person who
Mhm.
loves numbers and sitting there and organizing them all and making them all line up. That kind of personality is all left brain. Now they probably don't have the most exciting personality in the world. I know engineers who are left brain are not known for their humor and personality. But their ability to use the brain in a very succinct, organized, logical way is fantastic. We definitely need those for certain parts of our life. So it's good to have access and use that when we need it, and the rest of the time shut it off when we don't. Or even better yet, integrate as part of our pineal gland and our flow of who we are.
Yes. All right. So we're going to wrap up in a few minutes. So I just maybe do you want to share anything else? Like, or do you have any courses? Can people find you online? I mean, what you offer things online? I know you have a blog, you have a website.
Yeah, well,
What's the
my
best way to
website,
get a hold of you?
I'm sure the link is going to be there, but it's my name, Orion Mott, Orion like the stars, and Mott like the
Mhm.
Jews, no S, orionmott.com or Toronto Concussion Therapy.com. So all one word, Toronto Concussion Therapy.com. Those are the ways to access me. And I'm always interested in people's stories. There are a lot of times where people just call in and I can't treat them or can't help them, but I just want to hear what's going on in their lives and what their specific story is, because, and you can probably relate to this, is that your life is filled with other people's stories. Their
Yes.
experiences, their stories really enrich your life, and that's what's happened with me as well. Is that people's stories, their experiences, the good and the bad and the ugly too. It really gives me more compassion, more ability to understand who we are as humans. What is we're really trying to do here? What is it? What are we really up against? And I think I really resonate with people and who they are and what they're about. Sometimes I can help them, sometimes I can't, but I definitely appreciate the interaction and listening to people.
I do as well. I mean, that's part of being an empath is, or you just have strangers come up and start talking to you and their whole life
All the time.
story all the time. I know. It's like, okay, sure,
Oh yeah.
let's listen to this.
The checkout line at the grocery mart, I get that one a lot.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Oh, what do you
And
do? Well, I'm a brain healer. Like, you're opening a can of worms with that one. Well, how do you heal the brain? Well, here's my business card. Yeah. Oh, geez. I try not to say that because I know I'm going to get a million questions.
no doubt. And you're right now you're busier than ever, right? You're
You know what?
doing a lot of
I've taken a little break during this COVID thing just because I don't treat my office, but I do my medical intuitive stuff online. I do my emotional healing online, and I have my regulars that contact me, but I haven't been using my office. So
okay.
I'd say I'm working a little bit, but this time has been great. Doing some other studies and other courses right now, so I'm using that effectively because I never get this kind of time off, which is just wonderful.
That is. Well, thank you so much. I could learn, like I said, we could talk for hours. And guys, if you're on the replay, please comment, send your questions our way. We won't leave you hanging. We'll make sure Ryan gets, gets all the questions that you have and we'll make the connections for you. All right. Well, I want to thank you again for your time. I appreciate that. And take care. And I'm just going to end the show with a few messages. So just a second, everybody. Welcome. And I hope you enjoyed this week's segment. If you have any questions, please let me know. I just want everyone to know about the intuitive soul channeling. That is happening tomorrow night, Thursday, April 30th, 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Comment soul to sign up. It is complimentary. So if you've ever wondered how to channel or how to tap into your soul and find out what all the messages are about, this is your chance. Let me know. Comment soul to sign up. All right, guys, I want to wish you love, light, and blessings. And please remember, healing begins where the ego ends. Take care.